Hello, this is Jim Peters with Peters Principals, and as you know, we never know who we're going to have on Peters Principals, but quite often we have the superintendent. So Dr. Kalfawi, it's good to see you.
Good to see you again. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. What type of citywide organization does the school department have in place which are working with parents, teachers, and administration to raise our test scores?
Well, we don't have any formal citywide organization that we organize ourselves specifically for test scores. We work via various means. One, with our PTOs, they get very highly involved at school levels, and we hope to extend that kind of support at the citywide parents council. That helps a lot. But I think in terms of effort, citywide effort, again, it really goes back to trying to, if you know something works well in the school, you want to make sure that you use whatever means to make sure that that happens in all the schools. And you have that stability, and the parents notice that, particularly when they have siblings that are in various schools. They will report that. They say, well, how come my son is in this school and they do this and this and this and that, to inform us and find ways how we can help them at home, and my other daughter is in another school and they don't do the same thing. So I think, as again, we don't have an organization. We have a central office that responds to the entire city and its need, the need of all parents, hopefully all the students. But in terms of, we don't have a formal department organization to do all that, but we do have our processes and procedures are designed in a way that we promote quality and we promote good practice all throughout our schools, everywhere, and with the parents and all the parents.
Okay, we have, where this question came from was, I was reading in American Educator about the need for community involvement with education.
Oh, absolutely. I think that comes again, as I said, it comes in our in what we do in our practice, and we need to get parents involved. It's not always done to the same degree of success. I have to give you that, and I don't think we will be the only ones who are suffering that. Parents are a lot more involved, say, in the elementary age than they are as they get older in the middle and the high. That's usually the normal trend. However, we also see that parents are also, involvement is heavily involved by the economics that the parents enjoy, because if you have both parents working, and they have to leave home very early in the morning to go to their jobs,
right.
They barely have time to put the kid ready to go to. Sometimes they rely on grandparents or neighbors or older siblings to make sure that the younger sibling is ready to take the bus. And the same thing, it's hard reality, but it is a reality that a lot of our students go home to no parents because parents are still at work.
Right.
So by the time the parents come work, we've already passed several hours.
Right.
Several hours have passed, and there is very little that the parents now have the time to do other than get the meal prepared, feed them, and dress them, and make sure they go to bed safely, and so forth. So versus parents who have been able to spend more time. So this is what you find in every community such as ours, those challenges. And I think that's what makes our job in the urban school districts a little bit more challenging, because you, as a school system, you've got to find ways how to fill that void.
Right.
And you do that usually via trying to help the parents as much as you can, prepare the work for them. If they need to help your kids increase the communication with the parents, because given the constraints that you know and the challenges you work with, that they have so little time to work with their school-age children. So you need to make sure to provide them with as much as information to support their children.
Okay.
And conversely, when we don't have at all the possibility of having that gap filled in, and this is where after-school programs become, it's not a cost to me, it's a huge investment that we're making in the kids.
In after-school programs?
After-school programs, yeah.
Okay. And I know there's a great investment in the school budget for after-school programs.
Yeah, we try to do the best we can in that, and I think it's never enough. It's not
Right.
enough because the demand on our regular education is so high that obviously you're not going to take it from regular education, deprive them of good education just so you can fill in the after-school program. You need both
Right.
for certain type of children.
Okay. Is there any news on the, this is something that I discovered in the, looking up the history of the Lowell school system. The mentoring plan for principals. I know you have the Leadership Academy.
We have the Leadership Academy, which is doing marvelously better this year, doing really, really well. We have reorganized the Leadership Academy into 3 groups, so they can be manageable groups in smaller numbers. We have the assistant principals, one group, the principals, one group, and the central office and coordinators into another group, central office administrators and coordinators. And it helps us because then you have smaller numbers that you can work with, and it also helps us for planning in school, so we don't really leave, say if you have the day we're doing planning, working with the principals, you know the assistant principals are always going to be in school. And our administrators, central office, are available if they have to step in as a sub to help
Right.
for whatever reason. So you'll have more than one administrator. So the logistics work out much better. We've also changed the model and saved a lot of money doing so. Instead of having a very high-paid administrator to do that, we turned the model more into getting our leaders that have proven themselves, a couple of leaders here and there, that we know are very successful.
These are teachers who are leaders, right?
No, these are principals.
Oh, these are principals who are leaders.
And then what
Okay.
we do is then take them and they become, they led this model. So by paying them small stipends and bringing in speakership from outside, bringing in professional development from outside, something that is, well proven, then we're able to deliver much more for a lot less. Because there isn't the overhead for that. Because it's just a, I mean, I don't want to say just in the sense that it's not important. It's very important, but it's not a professional, it's not an everyday that our teachers leaders are having professional development. It's usually once a month. So it's something
Well,
that we
that
can
makes sense,
yeah. So that's working out really well, and the reviews that we're getting are superb. And we've
Good.
been able to deliver it with substantial savings of costs as
good.
well by cutting administrative positions.
Okay. I know that one person that I talked to was very interested in the cutting of administrative positions.
Yeah, I mean I understand. I mean it's like any business. You want to try to cut as many of your fixed costs as possible. People usually don't get upset with variable costs because that's directly related to the product. In our case, it's education. When you spend on education, people say, okay, we understand that. But if you start having now inflated fixed costs, then they get upset with you, and rightfully so. I mean, they want to see you making the effort. Any place I've ever been, it's not that the communities don't want to spend on schools. They just want to be reassured that you have looked at all the options to save money and then invest in the education.
Okay. Now this might just be me, but there seems to be some friction between the city and the school department. Is that true, and what do we do to lessen it?
Not really true. Not really true. I know it's sometimes some people like to see it true because it's entertaining. Some people, it creates news and so forth, but it's not really true. Our relationship is not any different than any normal relationship of 2 departments. We are independent. I mean, there's a lot of people also think it's true because a lot of people don't still think of schools as being just one simple department of the city. We're not. We're by law independent. We're the largest employer by far in Lowell, and obviously you are going to have differences of opinion, but hopefully, and differences of opinion should never be leading to differences. It leads more to, well, good, we don't agree on the same thing. How do we go from here? Let's get a consensus. So far, we've had really no big issue reaching any consensus. I think I know at my level, with the city manager. He has been very courteous, very supportive.
Okay.
And I don't recall a single time that I picked up the phone or talked to him personally and asked him for something that he said, no, we're not going to help you. His answer is always, okay, sure, let me see how I can help. And the same thing on my end. I mean, I've never turned down any requests for support or help. Does that mean that our staff, when they work with each other, they always look at, things the same way? Certainly not. And that's a good thing, because then you have differences of opinions, and hopefully you get a chance to debate issues and come up with the best solution that is better for the city.
Unlike Congress, you reach across the aisle.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
All the time. We're a little bit better because we usually are always on the same side of the aisle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. According to the Lowell Sun, taxes are going up throughout Greater Lowell. Is the school department helping to cause that, or is that?
Not to my knowledge, no, because we have not, to my knowledge, we have not submitted any budget request increase in at all. It's the funding that we got this year is the same funding as we got last year. As you recall, we even turned back some $600,000 at the end of the year last year to the city. We're looking at every possibility to figure out how we can save money for the city.
Mm-hmm.
If you heard the school committee last time, we presented an initial plan, which is just a small plan, but there's a much bigger plan that is coming to try to reorganize our out-of-district special education to deliver really a better service to our students by making sure they stay closer to home, but by the same token, delivering it not only more efficiently, but delivering it cheaper.
Right.
And save lots of money in the process. The solution that we presented, even though it involves just one class, and we're going to be saving $1 million. That ultimately, it's a saving to us of $1 million. That means it's a saving to the city, and it also means that because that $1 million will come to absorb whatever increases we might have for next year, and we don't have to turn to the city to ask them for more money. But also, it has direct impact onto the city, because when you're saving, when you're retaining your students internally and delivering a better service at that, you're going to be cutting down tremendously the cost of transportation, which is very, very high for, because a lot of these students might be going far and in smaller van, so you're looking at you don't have that economy of scale of a large bus.
Right.
So you pay a lot more money. So that comes in as a good news, because that's direct saving to the city, because the city pays directly for the transportation.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's a small plan that we're putting together. That's almost like a pilot plan for us. We're putting a much bigger plan that we hope is gonna quadruple those savings of $1 million. So we're going to be presenting those, and I think particularly in that case, I know that the city manager and his crew are very, very supportive, and they're working very hard to make sure that our plan come to fruition, because everybody's going to win out of it.
Well, that sounds good. I wrote this morning. I'm not sure I agree with it, but in my opinion, I said we don't need a new high school. What we need to do is increase classroom space, increase possibly the height of the high school so that there are more floors to go to, and increase our dependence on good quality teaching. If I can get accepted to Brandeis or Yale, anybody can do it who has the right spirit. Is that fair?
I don't know. It's a fair. Only the first part of your statement is the numbers, relates to the numbers. Currently, the high school, I don't think it's necessarily a capacity issue that we have a problem with the high school. We actually do have capacity there. So it's not necessarily the need to build additional classroom, at least not the way I see it. I think that to me is my first part of the response. I think it goes beyond the numbers here. If that part of the statement would have been adequate, correct, and applicable in the case of middle schools. That's where we're running out of capacity, and we need space there. However, the rest of it really goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Again, I've met some students who went to Harvard and Brandeis or whatever great schools you have that come straight out of villages from Africa who don't even have electricity.
Right.
Some students, under any circumstance, they will succeed because they're fight for success. Some students, the majority of students, is you need to give them the right equal
Environment.
opportunity, the right environment. As we call it the 80-20 model. We work with the 80%, realizing that you got a good 20% that falls into those two extreme, two ends of the spectrum. One,
Right.
our student, no matter what conditions, they are going to succeed. And the students that are, no matter what conditions, if you don't give them that extra help, they're going to fail.
Right.
But the 80% is where you're required to design your facilities for, really.
Okay. Should we concentrate on streaming the lower grades into more difficult middle schools and high schools and increase the curriculum at the high school so that it's tougher, or should we just carry the lower grades and promote the kids when they're
Oh,
ready
you
for
mean when you
promotion?
say lower grades, in like grades in attainment, yeah.
Primary grades, I'm sorry. When the,
Well, look, if it's to me, I know it sounds a little bit simplistic, but I'm not trying to make it more simple than it is. But we have guidelines. We have very strong curriculum guidelines. We have lots of resources available to us, and I think we need to perform everywhere we can as best as we can, and be compliant with the guidelines. And I think one of the problems when you start looking at the micro levels, you start looking really down at the problems and trying to figure out, is you see that often where we miss the mark is we haven't even been truly compliant with the guidelines.
Okay.
And when you are compliant with the guidelines, those guidelines were really drawn after years and years of research by professionals who've been in the classroom. And if we can just meet that, we know that we're going to give an equal fighting chance for our students. Now,
Okay.
when we do better than that is where our kids really excel and move even better than the average kids in the States. And I think if we do that, it will not be necessarily discussing between elementary, middle, and high, but it is really, we need to see quality consistent all throughout K through 12, pre-K through 12.
Okay. My daughter just graduated from UMass Lowell, which I was very pleased about.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And all of this talk about money and placement takes away money and placement in terms of schools having adequate finances and placement of students takes away from those who do what she did, in my opinion. 3 of my kids have finished college, and yet I still hear from that we should teach them to be electricians or plumbers. That's a big one on one of the shows that I have in the morning. That we should teach everybody to be an electrician or a plumber.
Yeah.
And why is Lowell? Where do we come up with this? I mean, you must have run into.
Well, I'm not a believer that everybody should be trained into electrician or plumber or roofer or anything like that. I think what I am a believer in is that we prepare the kids for college, as I said, and for the workforce. They have to be ready. So lots of our successful kids may not go to college. They may go to the military. They may go directly to some trade schools, whatever, to become very successful members of society. We need people of all sorts to make up for a successful society. But if you look at the jobs today, even when you go just to your dentist for cleaning, you would go to call your contractor to do a nice professional quote that he or she can compete effectively with they're all using modern tools, they're all using modern techniques that really require them certain minimum knowledge, academic knowledge, whether it be it math or be it writing. If you're looking at home and you're trying to do something and you get a quote,
Right.
most of the time that's the first thing that's gonna help you judge that person that you're gonna select as a contractor. And if somebody just gives you a lousy quote, very poorly written, and you that immediately formulates a judgment on the person versus the person who sends you a really professionally looking, very well detailed quote, you're automatically biased toward that person before you enter and look into the details further. Same thing for anything else. If you go to a dentist and you see them really highly qualified, they use good equipment, they're very trained in what they do,
Right.
and they speak to you really well, you like to come back. Versus somebody who really treated you very poorly, and you say, thank you, but you're going to see me again.
Right.
So I think in that respect, that's where I think our training comes in. I think I believe that you're going to find more and more that even when you are training for the electrician and the plumber and the contractor in general, that they do require more and more in terms of academic training than 50 years and 100 years ago.
Well, the thing that I keep thinking of is Benjamin Franklin, because he was heavily into vocational training.
Right.
And Thomas Jefferson was heavily into academic training. And they both filled a certain niche that needed to be filled, and taught their apprentices or their students to the best of their capacity. And I just was curious as to why Lowell's why there are people in Lowell who are kind of letting education down by specifying that the plumbers or electricians or dump truck drivers or whatever it might be are more qualified than a person who gets a degree from an academic institution.
Well, I don't know what motivates that kind of thinking and that kind of talk, but I do know that our trade schools have changed quite a bit. I mean, we got 2,000 students going from Lowell to, we have nearly 2,000 that go to trades, to the greater Lowell trade school, and I think things have changed in the past because of this stress they put the same stress on testing on these trade schools than they do on us. So what happens is this trade school, not really on their own will, but they found themselves having to become more academic than they are in trade. So yes, they do turn out incredibly well-prepared kids who may be trained to be a tradesperson, but they also have very good preparation for going to college.
Right.
And so maybe that's what they refer to. I'm not really sure.
That could be what they refer to. I don't know.
These trade school are preparing kids really well, but we also have heard a lot of complaints, which is a lot of our students who may not be necessarily good candidates for a comprehensive education, and they should be following these trades schools, are not able to get in because the academic requirements are higher.
Well, I know that you have school committee members who are proposing that you allow the children to go to trade schools.
Well, we do.
We don't not the vocational schools that we have now, but actually build trade schools of some sort.
On our own?
On our own.
Well, we can't, it's not that easy. I mean, anybody who is suggesting that, obviously, they have not been in touch with the latest laws after the various rounds of new sets of laws. And that is, no, you can't. For instance, a comprehensive school like us cannot offer a trades program, which we call a Chapter 7, to program. We can't do that without the permission of the local trade school unless it's something that was grandfathered. Like our program for culinary art is grandfathered, it's been there forever.
Right.
So we still carry it. But say we wanted to do another program that the trade school has, we won't be able to do it without their permission. They have to sign on to it. They have to allow it.
I didn't
because
know that.
they are they are the ones who are charged by the state to educate children who want to go into those trades for our area, not just Lowell, but other members of that school. So we can't go compete with them, just like they don't come necessarily and compete with us. We have to work together. If we have students who belong to those trades, they're supposed to go there. And students who are more comprehensive education, they're supposed to stay with us. And I know it doesn't always work out that way, and there's a lot of complaints about the trade schools stealing the good students who should be better served by saying into comprehensive school. I know there's a lot of talk about that, but at the end of the day, they're really not to blame. It's the system that is imposed on them for testing and all of that, that they're supposed to deliver the same results as us. So therefore, they find themselves having to compete with us. And also, much of it is a decision of the parents, really. I mean, as parents need to be better informed, and if a parent sees that their child is really will benefit better from a trade school, then they should send them to trade school. But if they see that they should be better prepared for in a comprehensive education, they should stay with us. Which puts now the onus on us to know how to sell ourselves better. We have great schools.
Right.
I don't know if we're doing a good job showing it to our community,
That we have great schools.
that we have great schools.
Okay. I think it's something we can work on. It definitely is. I know it's something that you've been working on for the past year,
Yes?
and selling the schools to the parents a lot. And as I said before, there's a magazine out that says that there has to be cooperation with the community,
Absolutely.
and that's important. Okay, well, this has been Jim Peters with Peters Principles and Dr. Kafawi, and thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, I hope those questions were good, but I.